Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. On behalf of myself, James Parisi, and my co-host, Aidan Sarah, we welcome you to this one. It is one that originally would have been met with disappointment, but Aidan, I have some optimism because the streak's alive.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Straight in. So
Straight in. I'm not even asking how you're doing. I
uh
just want to talk about this. This is all I can think about right now.
yeah. Well, just in general, this podcast is going to be a Saturday release. Apologies for that, everybody, because um my life kind of went from being nothing and boring to a lot happening at once. So the podcast being fit in was a priority, but it was tough to do. Yeah, so Nathan MacKinnon had, going into last night's game against the New York Rangers, recorded a point in every single home game this season. The Rangers were beating Colorado 2-1 late. The Avs had an empty net. MacKinnon passed it to Devon Taves at the line, who sent a shot towards the goal that was poked into the net by Mikko Rantanen. It looked pretty cut and dry that Nathan MacKinnon got a secondary assist on that play. It was not awarded. So as of right now, the streak has been snapped, but I can't imagine anybody would look at that play and not recognize that uh, there was an assist to MacKinnon. Regardless, he remains right in that Art Ross heart race with Kucherov and McDavid, by the way, who's like right there now.
Yeah, the McDavid thing is frightening. But didn't I say like several episodes ago that I think he's just gonna end up winning the Art Ross? I have a feeling it's just gonna happen. The best player
Yeah,
is going to end up being the best player.
yeah, oh yeah. No, I remember that. And it's very, very possible at this point.
Yeah, like we're looking at a very slim margin here now. What was once a gap of 10, 15 points at a time, usually, sometimes even up to 20, I believe. Kucherov's got 124, McKinnon 123, McDavid 122. Then in fourth,
123
what's up?
123 I was gonna say 123 that is gonna be 124 for McKinnon whenever they figure this out.
Yes, yes, that is true. But yeah, I mean, like, then there's a 19-point gap before Panarin at fourth. So we got the big three, and then everybody else. Is that the Ted Lindsay and our Hart noms probably?
You have to assume, yeah, especially with the fact that all three of these teams are, right in the playoff race, right? And would not be there without these players.
So if the Oilers didn't make the playoffs, would you not give McDavid a Hart nom?
It's hard not to nominate him.
Because he still is the probably the one of the most valuable players to his team's success.
Yeah, I mean, if they were abysmal, if they were like 10-65-7 or something,
Okay, if
then
anyone's 10-65-7, I don't want to see a player on that team get a
yeah,
Hart
yeah,
vote.
exactly. Like he could have 150 points, but if they finish the season with what 27 points, okay, I can understand not nominating him. But if they miss the playoffs, but he dragged them kicking and screaming into the race, then yeah, he deserves a nomination.
I would love to see the scores in the games this hypothetical, terrible, abysmal team that loses 65 games on, but has a player that puts up 150 points looks like. I'm I'd be
It
probably
was
shocked and appalled.
it was the Oilers at the start of the year, so it's not.
Well, they would probably have to lose like 8-5 very often.
Speaking of, Nashville lost their first regulation game in a very long time, 8-4 to the Arizona Coyotes. It does not change my opinion that I so adamantly don't want to play Nashville in the playoffs, though, because man, they are hot. And the one game anomaly, I can excuse.
Well, and that's what the playoff picture looks like today. Is Vancouver, Nashville, and then Edmonton, Vegas. And then Colorado would take on the Jets instead of the Stars, which I am fine with. And then Dallas would take on the Kings. That is a sick lineup of Western Series. And
Well,
yes,
and then
Nashville frightening, very frightening.
imagine the hypothetical second rounds that would breed. You could have Vancouver, Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas in the second round. That would be sweet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's that is such good playoff hockey. Are you just
Yeah.
itching for playoff hockey right now
Oh,
too?
for sure. Yeah. The other night I was just watching playoff clips.
Okay, like what about that one I sent you on Instagram, the Canucks 2011 one, and that Streets with No Name?
Dude, you sent me one from the Chicago series.
Yeah.
There's
Dude,
I
that was
think
game 7.
of the Chicago series.
Yeah.
If you go watch game 7 of the Boston series, it's even better. Like it's and it was what I said to you in return. Just for context, this is like um the opening and the intro to these games. So it's in Vancouver during the playoff run, and the players are ready to come out of the tunnel with the music playing and all the fans going. Like there is not in North American sports, there isn't a fan base that loves the sport more than Canadians love hockey. Europeans and South Americans love soccer as much, if not more, than Canadians love hockey. That's a fact. But in North America, this is as loved a sport is by a group of people. And the fact that this year, like Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vancouver, Toronto, that's that's exciting. That's very exciting.
It'd be kind of cool if Calgary didn't suck and they were in too. So we have more chance of a Canadian matchup somewhere. Calgary not sucking would be pretty cool. I like the league better when Calgary is good. That fan base is fun online. Like they're not a complete train wreck to deal with in comments. And then they just like traditionally hate and dislike teams, even though there's not even like that much of a rivalry. They just get super passionate about it. Like Calgary has a solid fan base in my eyes. That's a fun fan base. And it's one with a lot of gritty history too. Like you look at that fan base, their favorite players have been Lanny McDonald, Jerome McGinley, like Joe Newendike, Gary Roberts. Like it's fun. Like this is the fan base that's like, okay, put your work boots on, let's go. I want to see a Matthew Tkachuk in there. Like that was probably the beginning of the downfall of that team not being cool.
Oh, without a doubt. That summer gutted them. And it
Ugh,
sucks, but that's exactly what happened. Back to that Arizona Nashville game. Logan Cooley gets a hat trick. Good for him.
that's
Josh
fun.
Josh Doan adds 2 assists. That followed up from an NHL debut where he scored 2 goals. You're talking about Calgary. This what the Arizona Coyotes are experiencing here with Josh Doan, like Shane Doan's son, team legend, and his kid is ripping it up through 2 games. He's got 4 points. How excited are Calgary Flames fans for this draft and the opportunity to draft Ty Ginla in the first round as they're watching Josh Doan just electrify the fans with his first 2 NHL games?
Okay, imagine if in a couple years they also draft another Iginla.
Yeah, it's possible.
And I can't remember, I've said his name on the podcast, but there's the younger brother. Isn't he better? Like he's nasty.
So far, yeah. But when you're 14, right? Like it's
Yeah, the
yeah.
development curve can definitely hit
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah,
Like
right
Ty,
now he looks better at 14 than his older brother did. But
yeah.
I didn't expect this out of Ty in the dub, I'll be honest. I this has been a very pleasant surprise for me to see him rip it up this year the way he has. Like I was expecting pre before the season I was expecting him to be a second rounder. And he's right up there in WHL scoring. It's been awesome.
And doesn't he have like a fairly NHL ready style of game? Like one that would transition well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think his it's very hard to translate scoring, right? And I think that's kind of going to be where the hurdle is with him because he's a pure goal scorer, right? So it's tough to say if it's going to be a seamless transition because guys that are pure goal scorers, like remember Nolan Foote, that was a guy for me that I thought, okay, just You got to stand in one spot and shoot the puck. Arthur Kaliev too. Those kinds of players where it's like, okay, he's just going to be a goal scorer. Uh, They find it hard sometimes to transition from junior hockey to the NHL because there's a lot more you have to do without a choice, and B, you don't have nearly as much space to put the puck in the back of the net. I think Iginla is a step above both those players because of his tenacity, his motor is one of the best in the draft. He will, he'll never stop fighting. He'll never stop competing for space, for positioning, for the opportunity to put the puck in the net in the corner. So I think that takes him above the other two, but it's definitely going to be a transition. I think he'll probably be back in the WHL next year, and I could see him taking an AHL season or at least an AHL stint, maybe a playoff stint to get up to NHL speed.
Well, Owen Tippett was that kind of thing too, and like his development curve was rocky at first, but he's a
Oh,
great player now.
it was odd, right? Like he he almost looked like it was, just all right, this guy's not going to work out. And yeah, he's been a rock star with Philly.
Yeah, I wrote him off. I completely wrote him off. I like his autographed rookie card. I think at one point I just like put in with like the $5 ones, and I was like, meh, he's not relevant. And yeah, I mean, it's really paying off. I think Torts kind of helped complete him.
That for sure. Yeah. Speaking of coaches helping complete players, and this is the only Canucks thing I'm going to need to go with here. Um,
One, you only have one Canucks thing this whole pod.
so far, I mean, we'll see if anything else comes up. They lost to Dallas last night, but man, speaking of writing guys off, I'm not gonna say I completely wrote off Vasily Podkolzin. Like I had some faith. If you're not watching the games, he's played 11 games with the Canucks since he got called up from Abbotsford. He's got no goals and one assist. So it doesn't look sparkling, right? It looks rather disappointing, especially for a 10th overall pick. The hockey he's playing, I love it. I love it. His motor doesn't stop. He's been excellent in his own zone. He's been awesome on the forecheck. He's been awesome off the puck. If I'm building a team, he's exactly who I want in my bottom six. And 10th overall pick with as much upside as he had. Are you happy with a bottom six forward? I don't know, but you know what? He's trending in the right direction. We've seen the Nils Hoglander resurgence in spades this year. He's got 22 even strength goals, and it looks like Podkolzin's trending in that direction as well. So two prospects for the Canucks that both ended up in Abbotsford last year, both didn't look good, are looking like they're going to be solid NHLers. And it's worth saying as well on last night's game, the Dallas Stars, man, like that Colorado Dallas second round that I'm now almost certain we're going to get. That's going to be one heck of a series because the Stars are deep and strong, and the Avs are deep and strong, and both teams have great forward cores and great defenses and good goaltending. And man, that's going to be a classic, especially when you factor in the little bit of a rematch it'll be from 2020.
Yeah, I mean, that 2020 series was gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
Like, I think I watched it and I was living in my aunt and uncle's basement suite in Port Alberni, and I was supposed to meet all my friends to play soccer because I had this Wednesday soccer league going where we would all just meet, like, because at the time you had to find some way to meet and hang out outside. And so, yeah, we had a Wednesday soccer league going, and the game was on a Wednesday, started at 6 o'clock. I watch it, and Yoel Kiviranta just starts ripping my mind to pieces bit by bit. And then every time Klingberg or Heiskanen pedaled back at the blue line and scanned, I was like, okay, they're gonna put it towards the net and it's gonna go in because Colorado had Michael Hutchinson in net. And then next thing you know, bam, it's over. And I just stared at the wall while wearing my MacKinnon jersey and holding his autographed rookie card. One hand on my face, deflated. And then eventually I showed up at the soccer field. I don't think I said a word. It was that bad.
That day ended with the Vancouver Vegas game 7 as well. I don't know if you remember that.
I couldn't even think about hockey. I think I watched the end of that game in the background.
Yeah, that was that. I mean, much in the same vein that you had difficulty watching that game. I also have sour memories of that day.
Yeah, yeah, rough day. And like honestly, not my favorite playoff year to watch. It was just
Well,
not
I mean,
great.
it was hard. It's hard to really like love the playoffs without the atmosphere, right? Like it makes such a huge difference, and I was very happy that they got. I was happy they got it to work, right? I think that 2020 playoffs gets a little bit overhated because of the fact there was no fans and because of the unorthodox nature. Uh,
And Montreal like basically walking to a conference final against Vegas when
that was the next year. That was the next year. That wasn't that same year. Both that was the second COVID
oh yeah, that's
impacted
right. That's
playoffs.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they lost to Tampa after Dallas had lost to Tampa.
Right, right. Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I hate that run as much then because that felt like a good return. But then the next one with Montreal kind of walking to that conference final, I wasn't thrilled.
yeah, that was the weird Canadian division year, right? So I mean, they had Toronto in the first round, and they were down 3-1. So I don't know if you want to say they
Well, no,
walked past
and then
them.
it reseeded. The conference finals reseeded.
Yes, it
And I
did.
didn't like that. I thought that was really dumb.
Well, we ended up with three Eastern teams and one Western team, right? So it was hard to say like, oh, it's the Western Conference final with two Eastern Conference teams, right? Like it's
Yeah, yeah.
just the way the divisions worked out that year.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, back to this season, just kind of like leaving it off with Nashville. How good has Philip Forsberg been?
Forsberg and Yossi, man. Like,
It's
wow, both
nuts.
of them.
Like Forsberg is nonstop. And like I just want to talk about him because I find he's like probably the quietest superstar we have going. Like he's a superstar game changer. He has the style and swagger. And Nashville's like it's a fun market at least. It's not the biggest market, but like you would think he would get talked about more. I understand he usually misses like 15, 20 games a year, but like you would think this guy would get talked about a bit more. He is that good.
For me, Philip Forsberg represents a funny, like, j- funny piece of the NHL where you really never know when a player is going to enter their prime. He was so good in the years that Nashville were really competitive, right? Like I think he was 22 when they went to the Stanley Cup final. He had his second straight 30-goal season that year, 9 goals in the playoffs, but he really didn't hit in terms of like a game-changing superstar until his late 20s. He had a 40-goal season a couple years ago. Um I think it was the first season out of COVID, the first normal year, 42 goals and 85 points in I believe less than 70 games. Um, and he just put up 40 goals and 80 points this year again, at the age of 29. And I think, like it goes to show that a player's prime can come at any point. Like it kind of feels like we're just still in the Joe Pavelski prime, doesn't it?
Well,
it
that one just feels like it's never going to end. I feel like that guy's going to play till he's like 45 and just like still put up like 25 and 25.
Well, he had his career high year a couple years ago at the age of
Oh,
what? It would have been 37 at the time.
yeah. And like you could say, oh, that line's nuts, but you can't tell me he isn't oftentimes the most important player on that line.
Yeah, oh, for sure. He's a baller in the playoffs. Yeah, like
Oh,
that team's gonna man, that Dallas team's scary. It is.
yeah.
Matt Duchene having the season he's having. He's got the second most points on that team. You've got Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven who look really, really good. Johnston especially. Man, I love that guy. Um
And then I want you
Heiskanen.
to look at Jamie Benn's last 20 games.
Oh, he's been a beast. He played
It's
really well
nuts.
last night against Vancouver. Thomas Harley, man. I said this. My dad was at the Canucks game last night, and I texted him this. I said, whatever the Dallas Stars scouts are getting paid isn't enough. Both their amateur scouting and their pro scouting, because you obviously you have these guys they've drafted. Jason Robertson was a second round pick. Wyatt Johnston was a late first round pick. Thomas Harley was a late first rounder, mid first rounder. But even just when I say pro scouting, I'm talking about, Matt Duchene and identifying, yeah, we got to get this guy in on this cheap contract. Mason Marchment as well. Mason Marchment had a solid season in Florida, and Dallas said, no, you know what? Let's get this guy on the contract that he wants, because I think that this is a second line player with 25 goal, 55 point upside, and he's proving them right. You know what I mean? This is an undrafted guy who had played uh, either just over or just under 82 games in his NHL career when Dallas signed him to a pretty significant contract, and it's worked out very well. Um, you've yeah, like it's crazy to think that they in 2017 were bad enough to get the third overall pick. And here we are, and they're one of the one of the top 5 teams in terms of chance to win the Stanley Cup, in my opinion, this year.
Oh, totally, totally. Like no debate on that whatsoever. And then all those pieces with the pro scouting you were talking about, those pieces have come together to represent a lot of guys that have played with Tyler Seguin this season. And we're seeing a resurgence in Tyler Seguin. That is a useful player again. That is a guy who can play second line again. It's really impressive to see what he's done. It was what, his hips? He had something significant with his hips, I believe, or was it his knees?
I was gonna say hips, but then when you said knees, that sounded right as well. So
I think they might both be right.
it was a joint thing. I know that.
Yeah, and I remember there was this like sick little graphic he put on his Instagram that clearly one of their media guys on the team put together for his comeback game. And this comeback game was like the season after they went to the finals, he started playing like the second or third last game of the year. And he didn't look so good. The video was pretty sick, but he didn't look great. And I was starting to think, uh-oh, this guy might be falling apart. And I thought he was pretty done, unfortunately. And I've always been a Sagan fan. I've always thought he's like a really entertaining player to watch. Kind of brings some swagger to the media. Like it's fun. I enjoy watching Tyler Sagan. And so it kind of sucked that he was falling apart. That was just like another piece of my childhood gone, because he was one of those sick rookies coming in when I was paying the most attention. And yeah, yeah, I mean, he's done nothing but impress me this season. Mr. Consistent when healthy and not out of the mix for too long. So, yeah, I don't see holes on this Dallas team if Jake Ottinger plays well.
No, I agree with you for sure. Like it's there's a lot of teams that could win the cup this year. I think there's more teams this year than there usually is, isn't it? If you look at the
I would say
Western
so.
Conference, what I think 3 teams in the Pacific, 3 teams in the Central. The East to me is it looks a little bit weaker. It's funny that the pendulum has shifted again, because
It happens so quick.
in the early 2010s it was, save for the 2011 Bruins, it felt like the winner of the Blackhawks Kings series, whenever they'd inevitably meet, was going to win the cup. Um, and then the Eastern teams were the strongest, right? Like Pittsburgh beat a San Jose team that was great, but not nearly as good as Pittsburgh. They beat a Nashville team that was great, but not as good as they were. 2018, Washington walked over Vegas. 2019, St. Louis surprised Boston. That wasn't supposed to happen. And then 2020, 2021 were the Tampa years. But it does feel like we've swung the pendulum back into the Western Conference's favor. Like if the Rangers don't win the cup, I'd be shocked to see it be an Eastern Conference team.
Carolina
Florida,
looked gross.
Carolina, yeah. Carolina and Florida are going to be the competitors. I just, and maybe, most teams that win the cup, you can say this about when they're coming up, but I just I'm not confident in the Hurricanes to win when the games mean everything,
Mm.
but I'm ready to be proven wrong this year. Like yeah.
It's going to be an Evgeny Kuznetsov soaring eagle in overtime to get them to the Cup finals.
Yeah, who imagine Kuznetsov and Gensel like combining for that
Oh,
goal? Like who would have thought?
okay. Speaking of Gensel, Gensel and Seth Jarvis, insane together. Those two have ridiculous chemistry and it hit seemingly right off the bat. Like sometimes that goes to show just very talented players who are extremely successful already. You just pair them together. Sometimes it just works. Sometimes talent matches talent. It's wild. It looks like they've played together their whole lives.
And it's helped Jake Gensel get 12 assists in 10 games so far with Carolina, which is a crazy number for somebody I've always considered more of a goal scorer than a supplier of goals. But 2 goals and 14 points in 10 games for him so far. And yeah, it's interesting. It's Carolina, Florida, Rangers are your Eastern Conference block of teams, but man, yeah, this is a drawn out way of saying this is going to be just. I'm so excited for these playoffs. Like this is
Wait, Aiden, did we talk about that series that Amazon Prime's going to be doing yet? Didn't that news come out right after our last pod?
it did. Here, I'll let you take a swing.
Okay, so basically the NHL is talking about following 10 to 12 players over the course of a season. Apparently they already tested a lot of footage with a handful of players over last season. It's two or three guys. They also followed around Paul Bissonnette, and that would be like part of it because I guess he's an NHL personality, and I don't know if that's going to get used. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it, but and it doesn't sound like the footage from this year is going to get used, but I guess part of the contract is that it could. This could come out in the summer as some kind of media before the season, some kind of preview of what we're going to get, or it could potentially get used as in tandem with what's going on next year. And then apparently, this footage can also be brought to other streaming platforms. It's not an exclusive deal with Amazon, but the series with Amazon will be happening. And yeah, they're going to fall around 10 to 12 guys. Um, I'm really hoping we see some diversity here, maybe some quiet superstars, maybe some guys we might not otherwise hear from, maybe, and then some vibrant personalities. We were just talking about Seth Jarvis. That would be a fun one. Yeah, he would be a great guy to follow around over the course of the season. Like Jarvis is just he's entertaining. I don't know if you've seen much of his interviews, but it's I mean, it kind of started with the All-Star one, went from there. And yeah, yeah, it's I think he'd be pretty entertaining. Do you have any ideas off the top of your head? Anyone you'd want to see?
My thought process gravitated towards like it's kind of like you said. Oh, who of the quiet superstars are we gonna get come out of their shell, right? Like of the, like are we gonna get something out of Connor McDavid? Um, I would love to see Nikita Kucherov do it. He's just,
Dude, that is not gonna happen.
yeah,
There's no way.
I just think that would be hilarious. Um,
Like, I think you can guarantee that Kucherov and Point will not do it. Like,
Kucherov's just so funny, man.
dude, those guys are so closed off media wise. Like that Kucherov interview from the Cup Finals, that's like all we've seen. Like, tell me one thing other than a very short, like star of the game interview.
Yeah, well, and then we obviously saw what happened at the All-Star game, like him clearly like, okay, I don't want to be at this skills competition right now.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, maybe he had a night before.
I think William Nylander's got to be on that list.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like that one's a lock. That one's happening. And then through Nylander, like you'll get some Matthews footage where he'll just like hop in for like a chunk of an episode. Like a good chunk of an episode. Like that guy doesn't mind some spotlight, and I like that. I mean, but there's got to be someone strange, like someone you wouldn't expect. Maybe like a depth guy who's been a journeyman and he's on like his fifth or sixth team. I like that kind of thing. But then you probably wouldn't want to have it be anyone who could be sent down, would you? Or would that be interesting? I think that would be interesting for us, but I think other people don't care.
I agree with that statement. You're right. Like it would be I think it'd be very cool to watch the ups and downs of being the fringe NHLer. It's not going to be in this series. That's a fact. You'll
Well,
get
like
you'll
I've seen brought up that people would want like an Arbor guy or Matt Rempe, like someone who's like entertaining with the media and like a polarizing physical presence.
Yeah, that
And,
would work. That'd be
but then
sweet.
if they're getting sent down here and there, like does that take away the entertainment value to the casual hockey fan?
Well, and then that's where I wonder, okay, well, do you maybe center it around those players as teams, right? Like I know the idea is to follow the players, but as you're focusing on Arbor or Matt Rempe, do you make it very Habs or Rangers centric? Because, Juraj Saikovsky, I think, would be very entertaining on something like this. I would love an insight into the brain of Artemi Panarin, like
Yeah,
personally.
yeah.
um,
I just want to know if he still gets Panera Bread and if it's still free.
I want to know like how is he always going to shave his head from now on, right? Like he cut his hair and he's having this unbelievable season. I'd want to know like I'd want to know how serious he is about that.
I think he walks his dog a lot. I get that vibe. He very often walks his dog. I think his dog's name is like Mr. Rizzy or something like that. He posts about him a lot on Instagram. I don't follow many NHL players on Instagram, but I follow him. And yeah, that's most of his social media from what I remember is his dog. He really likes that dog.
We've talked a lot about increased scoring in the NHL, and it's we've had two more 50-goal scorers, Zach Hyman and Sam Reinhart. So I wanted to just highlight since the pandemic, James, so the last three NHL seasons, including this one, we've had 12 50-goal scores. Four in 21-22, they were Matthews, Draisaitl, Kreider, and Ovechkin. Then last year we had five: McDavid, Pasternak, Rantanen, Draisaitl, Point. And this year it's been Matthews, Hyman, and Reinhart. Between 09-10 and 19-20, there were only 11 50-goal seasons. So we've had more in the last 3 years than the previous decade before it. Five of those 11 were Ovechkin as well. Um, is this going to like when you think about the goal scoring and the 50-goal scores, do you see the line continuing to rise? Like is this going to be more and more and more and more, or do you think we're going to cap out and this is just going to be the normal where it's like, okay, 3 a year, 3 or 4 a year? Or are
I
we going to
think
get
like
to the point
five or
where
six is going to be pretty standard.
yeah, yeah.
Because honestly, this season, McKinnon and Pasternak are going to get to 50. That seems like a lock. I mean, they might miss out very slightly. And then you can't put anything past. I mean, there's what, like 12 games left for most teams? 10? Something like that. Like, you can't tell me it's impossible for Point or Kucherov or Forsberg or Panarin to go on a crazy goal scoring run and put up 7 to 9 goals.
Nylander as well in that
Yeah,
category.
Nylander. I mean, that would have to be like a goal per game. Like I think just under a goal per game feels possible, but I mean, we've seen players put up 8 goals in 7 games, just go on a really good little run. There's no reason it can't go a little bit longer. I mean, I'm not gonna bet on it, but yeah, I mean, 5 or 6 feels fairly standard now. And I think the bigger question is, are we going to have a surprise 50 goal scorer every year? Okay, 21-22 you highlighted. Chris Kreider. We
Yeah.
didn't see that coming. Braden Point, I mean, like more possible, but I didn't think it was going to happen. Like Rantanen, you always saw the talent. He got 55. Like that's a lot. And then Sam Reinhart and Zach Hyman this year. So what's next? Who's our next surprise 50 goal scorer?
Well, we're talking about goals as Connor McDavid is about to be the fourth player in NHL history to get 100 assists in a season.
Oh,
That's going to happen. Um, Bobby
that
Orr did it
guy just does
once.
stuff.
Mario Lemieux did it once, and then Wayne Gretzky did it a bunch of times. I think 11 for Gretzky, which is insane. But what a group of four for Connor McDavid to be in with Bobby Orr, Mario Lemieux, and Wayne Gretzky.
I mean, it's kind of fitting,
It
is it not?
is. Oh, totally. Especially again with the increased scoring, right? Like you're gonna, if it continues to rise, maybe some other
Yeah.
records fall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what other records could fall? What else we got? What's next on the list? Hopefully that point streak.
Something like a point streak, I think, first off. Like I don't think, when I think about records, I think there are untouchable ones. I don't think anybody's going to hit 92 goals in a season. I don't think anybody's going to hit 215 points. I don't think anybody's going to score 50 goals in less than 39 games, right? Like there are some,
That one's not going to happen.
yeah, there are some where it's just like, yeah, no. But yeah, point streaks, right? Like a player getting a point in every game. Um, you'll have the McDavid's already broken both, or he's about to break the 100 assist plateau. You'll see him. You saw him last year break 150 points. I think we see a 70 goal scorer again, right? It's
Yeah.
been a long time. I don't know about 80. That would be very cool. But 70 for sure will happen. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think Matthews gets there. Um, he'll probably get around where McDavid got last year, the 64, 65 range. But it's it feels like a very exciting time to be a hockey fan.
Yeah, I mean, between that, like scoring being up, making it easier to watch, easier to be entertained by it, and then that Amazon Prime series, which will probably be pretty big. I feel like we're attracting a lot of new fans this generation. Think about how many kids that are like 10, 11 years old are going to be like, "Mom, Dad, can I watch the NHL show? Mom, Dad, we need Prime so we can watch the NHL show." Like that's going to bring in so many kids, so many diehards. And think about how many of them are going to have a new favorite player. That's just awesome. Like it is a wonderful time to be alive as a hockey fan. And maybe we're feeling this way now because playoffs is coming up and we're programmed to feel this good at this time of year because we're anticipating. That very well could be it. Because first round of playoffs is like a Christmas morning. That first day of playoffs where you get home from work, school, whatever it is you're doing, and it's 4 o'clock and you have a choice between two playoff games right now and the two of them later. And you're flipping between, you might have both screens going so you can watch both at once. That's what I do.
Oh yeah,
Laptop,
me too.
TV.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah, it's needed. It's very needed. But then like it's just the best. To the point where did you see the thing on the TNT panel last year or the year before for basketball? And they asked Charles Barkley something and he was like, "Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was watching playoff hockey." Like,
It's gonna,
sorry, this is
yeah.
better than what we're talking about. Like, that's just unreal. The game's in such a good place, man.
Before we trend away from the NHL, did you see what Andrew Berkshire said about Zach Hyman? I've got a very quick. It's not 2 cents. It's maybe 4 cents. It's a couple. It's a couple 2 cent takes on this. I just wanted to get your
Take it
opinion
away.
first.
Take it away. Let's hear it.
Okay, so Andrew Berkshire went, I think it was TikTok actually, where the video was posted. He's an NHL writer, and he said like he was talking about Zach Hyman. He's like, oh, because the rhetoric around Zach Hyman when he scored his 50th goal was okay. This guy was a fifth round pick, like this shows the hard work you can get anywhere. And Andrew Berkshire was basically like, okay, yeah, but Zach Hyman also had, he came from a very wealthy family who uh, spent a lot of money and put a lot of financial investment in his hockey career. And it, basically saying don't you shouldn't be saying, oh, hard work can take you anywhere, because this guy had everything handed to him. So two things with that. First of all, I don't like the don't take away from Zach Hyman's accomplishments, right? Like he did come out of nowhere, right? He was a fifth round pick. He continually carved out opportunities for himself, and now he's a 50 goal scorer. You can't take that away from him. And I don't really love the idea of, knocking down somebody's greatest career achievement. Um, Number two, James, like, I don't know if this is a secret or not. High level successful hockey players and coming from wealthy families, they kind of go together like peanut butter and jam. Like, I'm sorry if that's like a surprise to anybody. Hockey is expensive when you just play like 3 times a week, and like playing house league hockey as a kid is expensive. Now add in the cost of playing for high level teams, the cost of prep schools, the cost of the travel, the equipment, the extra coaching, the extra ice sessions, the
Development camps, those aren't cheap.
yes, like hockey, I totally think should be more accessible. I totally think there should be more programs and more opportunities and more scholarships to get people into hockey and give everybody the same opportunity. But the fact of the matter is that's not what it is right now. It maybe sucks, but every NHL player in some way benefited from their families helping them financially at like, through their hockey development age. Like I don't know why Zach Hyman's the lightning rod for this. This is hockey. Like again, I don't want to burst anybody's bubbles who think like hockey's like other sports where you can have nothing else but the game. I'm sorry, that's not it, and it sucks. I think hockey should be more accessible. Um, that's all I'm gonna say. And as much as I disagree with what Berkshire said, I also think the internet in general, one of the biggest problems with social media is the tendency for people to pile on. Like, yeah, Andrew Berkshire said something that was relatively disagreeable. I didn't like it. I don't know why every single hockey fan has to just pile on him and dunk on him. Like, yeah, it was a statement that he probably regrets making. So you know what? Leave him alone. Like it's too much anti Berkshire hate after he said that. Everything he said. Like it had some merit. He was right. Zach Hyman's family did financially help him in his career development. Um, I didn't like the fact he used that to take away from his accomplishment. But that's it. That's the whole thing. Put a bow on it. I don't know why this needs to be any more than that.
And on that, I will agree with you and not make it any more than that. Yeah, I think that's everything we have or need on the NHL today. I think you want to talk about Jaeger Furcus a little bit with your little junior segment here. What do
Oh
you got
man,
for us?
Seattle's got some prospects. I'll tell you that. The Kraken have some guys. Jagger Furcus just finished the regular season. He hasn't played a playoff game yet with Moose Jaw, but 61 goals and 126 points in 63 games with the Moose Jaw Warriors. This was a Seattle second round pick in 2022. And James, like this, eh, I wanted to talk about Furcus because he's the prime example of a player archetype that I always called. I think I've said this on this podcast. I always called it the Jeff Tambellini. In 2011 with the Canucks, I loved Tambellini, but he couldn't break into the top six, and he wasn't effective enough in the bottom six to stay there. So he didn't play a lot of games. And I think Jagger Furcus, if he hits, he's going to be a great player, but he can't really play anywhere but that scoring position. So it's interesting to see a prospect like this where their ceiling is so high, but I don't think their floor is very high either. But man, like I just wanted to highlight him because he just finished his amazing season, leading the WHL in points, second in goals to Zach Funk. Like it was quite the year. And the WHL this season was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on the Seattle note, have they really made a bad early pick yet? Like one that doesn't seem good or useful? I don't think they have. I think they've been using their picks in early rounds extremely well. Like Matty Beniers seems to fit the I can be at least a second line center mold.
Yeah,
That's something to check off the list.
he's sophomore slumping hard, but I think he'll bounce back next year. Shane Wright's obviously the big question mark, but after Wright, you've got Riker Evans, you've got Edward Shala, Carson Rakoff, Jager Furkis, Lucas Dragicevic, who I like, Oscar Fisker Molgard, who I like. It's a lot of good players. I do think they should be targeting a defenseman here in this draft. We'll see exactly what position they're picking in, but there's a lot of solid defensemen at the top of this draft. It's gonna be interesting. Obviously as excited as I am for the playoffs, the whole hockey outlook for the next little while is exciting because this draft is going to be very intriguing as well.
Definitely, definitely, man. I mean, no shortage of defensemen, as you said. Like it's really fun. I really, really like this draft class just for good times. We've talked about it a lot earlier this season, and we're going to talk about it a lot as we draw towards the end of the playoffs. But yeah, yeah, it's going to be a fun Seattle prospect base, and I have a feeling they may get some draft lottery luck. I just have a feeling.
We have a question about draft wish lists for some of the bottom teams, so I'll save my comments to then about the Kraken and their lottery luck. But what I will say right now, any team that drafts first overall, regardless of positional needs, they're taking Macklin Celebrini. 31 goals in 35 games with Boston University this year. He looks good. He looks very good.
Yeah, he's going to look really good in that teal Sharks jersey. He's going to end up on the Sharks.
I have that feeling
Anyone
too.
who doesn't like that.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well. All right, James, you watch any movies this week?
Yeah, yeah. It's not that I was disappointed because I expected it. You know when you watch a trailer and you're like, this looks fun, but it also looks really bad. I really like Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's awesome.
I know where you're going with this.
I watched Roadhouse, the remake with my roommate, and you know what? For anyone who it's a fun popcorn movie for, you can stop listening right now because I'm gonna sound like a jerk.
It was oh,
Dude, that movie sucked. Did you see the CGI when the like a truck backs up and hits Jake Gyllenhaal and it's like someone computerized a pendulum on a swing and it was like it just flies over in the most impossible not realistic way a truck could go in reverse. And I get it. It's a cheesy action movie. And, there were funny parts. There were like three parts that I laughed. I was made to laugh three times. So I can't say I wasn't somewhat entertained at a couple points. But like the writing, the dialogue they would have between each other when it's like a relatively important character building moment, God, that sucked. And then it's like
yeah.
and then you get to the climax and it's like, okay, it's starting to ramp up. Like I can at least enjoy some decent action scenes here. And then Jake Gyllenhaal's like, I didn't want to get going because when I get going, I can't stop. And then he just like starts killing everyone. He like all of a sudden just goes on like a murder rampage. That dude, that was so corny and so badly done. Just so bad. And then like every important character's dialogue with him is like a quick one-liner and then like a smile and a look and then he's like, I say funny or suave thing. Haha. And then it's like, okay, it's supposed to be funny. But yeah, the camera cuts during the fight scenes, no. No, thank you. Nope. No, those were really bad. And I was like, oh, Conor McGregor's in it. They'll probably do some cool fight scenes. Yeah, to some people, those probably look cool. But then like the slide around reverse camera cut. Okay, I'm not a camera whiz, but it just sucked, man. It was bad. And then my roommate was like, I'm gonna watch it again to see if it's good. Maybe we just weren't watching it well. And yeah, he put it on again. I wasn't doing it. I knew there's no coming back for this movie. This movie's done. But on a more positive note, they made a sitcom that's like live action Family Guy, but it's Ted, like the teddy bear Ted that was in the Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg movie.
Yeah.
And dude, it's basically live action Family Guy with the scene transitions and the music and the way the characters work with each other. It's awesome.
I,
I
I I've
you never get comedy, and I enjoy that.
I've heard great things. I do want to watch it. The first Ted movie is a very good comedy in my opinion. The second one is not nearly as good. um I
After
also think
watching both of them the night before last, I completely agree.
yeah, like I think the second one would be a lot better if the first one didn't exist. And
Yep.
I know that's a weird statement, but it took a lot away from the first one almost. Like um it didn't build off it at all, and it cheapened the first movie. Like the fact
Hmm.
that Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis just break up at the beginning
Yeah.
inexplicably. That was a terrible decision thematically. Um
You know,
anyways,
yeah. I mean, enough about the writing in Ted. Did you watch any movies? You got anything for me?
okay. So my parents came to visit me. That was part of the random busyness I got into. Um Usually with my parents and my dad specifically, like I'm a big movie guy, so it ends up being me showing my parents movies and showing my dad movies. My dad more so than my mom, just because he he generally has more time than she does. She does a lot of she goes she's a school teacher, but she goes above and beyond. She's always doing something for her class. So me and my dad end up with more time, and we'll watch a we've watched a ton of movies together. So while they were over, we watched a few that I had already seen that I wanted to show them. And then my dad was kind of like, okay, well, we got one more. Why don't we watch one that you haven't seen? And I was kind of like, well, I just want to, for me, it's recommending movies to you. I'm trying to show you movies that I think you'd like. But yeah, I'll send you some stuff off my watch list. So I took my watch list. I took screenshots of the movies and I sent them to him, and he picked based on the plot. He picked to watch Requiem for a Dream. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. It is on my list.
Okay, it was good. I'm a guy who rewatches movies, right? Like I totally do, because I think the second time you watch a movie is when you'll fully appreciate the filmmaking the most. I never want to watch Requiem for a Dream again. It was hard to get through. It's a good movie, but man, the imagery, the story, the like it felt like it ripped my heart out. Like it was it was tough. It was good, but man, like it's a tough watch.
I've been
Definitely.
told that, and I've been told it's often a situation where after you finish watching it, you're just kind of in thought. You're pondering for a while.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's not that I couldn't sleep. I didn't really want to sleep after. I just kind of wanted to sit there and think about what I just watched.
You briefly mentioned appreciating something more or noticing something more in movies when you watch it the second time, you grasp it more. For me, that was Inception. The second
Yes.
time I watched Inception, I was like, wow, this is really something else. Like it just that movie's pacing is like that's the blueprint. Like try to pace a movie that well. You won't. I don't think I've watched other ones that pace that well, or at least obviously do. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's enough for movies, but I think we have questions to answer, don't we?
We have a lot, so huge kudos to everybody who submitted them.
Oh,
All
this is a
right.
lot. I didn't scroll down and see there was a second page.
Yeah, so
Nice.
we've got five here. Well, kind of six. The last one's two questions, really. Two questions with the same theme.
Well, how about we start from the top with these Spotify questions?
Okay. Question one. Rank the top three best Stanley Cup finals you've watched in your lifetime. Do you have anything off the top of the head?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I mean, you could say I'm biased, but that Tampa, Colorado one was everything you could have asked for. blowouts, tight games, heroic performances, like come from behind victories, and then just elite talent going head to head. That had everything. Another one like based on pure entertainment, like the NHL was just in a different place when the Canucks and Bruins played each other in 2011, and it still had that mystical old feel to it. Like this is the promised land, here we are. And maybe that was like a youthful innocence thing, maybe because I was like 12, 13 at the time, but it just seemed so magic. There was still like a hint of that in 2012 with like the Cinderella Story Kings against the Cinderella Story Devils led by Broder and then like a prime Parisi and Kovalchuk. That was something. But number three, that's a hard one, but um okay, I don't remember it perfectly because I was all of 7 or 8 years old, but Hurricanes Oilers when I was a kid. That was like it was like watching a movie. It was like clockwork, like someone directed it. It was just insane. And then the CBC Hockey Night in Canada intro with Savin' Me by Nickelback. It was so good. It is electric. Aiden, you've watched it, right?
I think you showed me this. Like we might have even been at your house when you've showed me this.
Oh, this is the best one. Like Chris Pronger walks out, and then like you have I can't remember who was the play-by-play guy at the time, and there's a call of a really important goal from earlier in the series. I want to say it was a game winner, and it's Fernando Pisani scores. And then like the drums kick in and everything. It was just insane. Like Ryan Smith and Chris Pronger, like they were warriors. It was insane. And then Carolina was just put together. They had the young superstar Eric Stahl, Rod Brindamore, like veteran Glenn Wesley, and then the rookie Cam Ward capturing the Conn Smythe. It was like I look back at that, and that's legendary. I'm gonna, as the kids these days say, that's my Roman Empire.
That's
The 2006 Stanley Cup Finals between the Oilers and the Hurricanes is my Roman Empire.
I got fixated when you said you were like 7 years old during that. So you were born in the 1990s, hey?
98.
98. That blows my mind a little bit. Um,
Yeah, the first Cup final that I very clearly remember watching visually, I don't remember that I just watched it, was '03. And that's why,
wow.
like, yeah, yeah.
See, I know I was in the room aware that 08 and 09 were both happening,
Hmm.
but 2010 Chicago Philadelphia, I would have been 7 years old during that series. That was the first for me that uh that I remember wholly in terms of like I remember I might even remember how the series went. I'm pretty sure it was 2-0 Chicago, 2-2, and then 4-2 Chicago. I remember Antti Niemi having great games and bad games. I remember Philadelphia's goaltending being just this wild, rotating Michael Leighton, Brian Boucher, just weirdest Stanley Cup final goaltending, hey? Niemi, Leighton, and Boucher that year. My top three, 2011 Vancouver Boston, as harrowing as that is. 2019 St. Louis Boston. I still have never, and I don't know if I ever will let go of that. Just like I just want to watch the Bruins lose. And 2019, I love O'Reilly, not as much as
Yeah,
James loves O'Reilly,
yeah.
but I do very much like Ryan O'Reilly. I like Petrangelo a lot, Shen, Schwartz. I did like that St. Louis team.
Binner.
Um, yeah, save for.
At the
Um,
time, you liked Binner.
yes, at the time it was that. Wow, look at this guy. So that's probably my number two. Tampa, Colorado was up there because again, like I was very happy with the Avalanche winning and again, I'm a huge Rantanen and McKinnon fan. Nashville, Pittsburgh in 2017, man, that was wild.
That
Like
was a
that,
cool finals. That was a really
yeah.
cool finals.
So I think that one takes my three. The happiest I've been with the end of a final was 2018. It's not on the list because it was only 5 games and um, there was only a couple like super entertaining games. But Washington Vegas and watching Ovechkin win the
Yeah,
cup was
yeah.
that's the best single moment out of a final for me.
Honestly, I will say I was comparably happy after that one with when Colorado won the cup. Comparably happy, like in the same realm. Like you could argue that I was more stoked. And I think happy and stoked are different things, but I was more
Okay.
stoked with Ovechkin and the Caps winning the cup because it was just so cool. It was something everyone wanted. Like, were there really any people like true hockey fans, not just people who are casual fans and like to cheer for the opposite of what everyone else wants? Were there true hockey fans that wanted Vegas to win, other than like save for maybe Penguins fans?
No, well, 2018 playoffs, I would have been in the 10th grade, and I think I was in the minority among my hockey fan friends. Everybody that I knew was very wrapped up in the Vegas inaugural season Cinderella run.
Oh,
Um,
really? I was
not
pissed they took out Winnipeg.
Yeah, me too. I wanted the Jets to win. I was in the
Yeah,
minority of that as well. I
yeah.
think a lot of those people in retrospect that I still know would say that they fondly remember Ovechkin winning and are happy about it. But I remember at the time I wasn't the only one, but I was in the minority of people who wanted Washington to win in my circle.
Interesting. Yeah, that was not that way in my friend group. Like it was a group stokedness. And when Ovi in his post-game interview said, "Friends, grab some beers and celebrate," we did it. I was like, damn, thanks, Ovi. So I just called all of my friends and we just went to our local watering hole. It's perfect. It's everything you could have asked for. But Aiden, do you have a Roman Empire of playoff runs or a specific cup finals?
It's hard to answer the absurdity of that question.
Yeah, I know, I know. I've started going up this slope. I have to keep going now.
Yeah, I suppose the I suppose my Roman Empire is what if Tampa had beat Boston in the 2011 East Final? They lost 1-0 in Game 7. I think that Canucks team rolls that Lightning team in the final. I
Or
think
Steven Stamkos has 10 goals in 7 cup
it's
final games and wins the Conn Smythe.
it's possible, very possibly that could happen, but
Or
it
a
was the
second Marty St. Louis and Vinny LeCavalier hoisting the cup.
for me it would have been the difference between I believe facing Dwayne Rollison and Mike Smith and facing Tim Thomas that year.
Okay,
Um,
playoff Dwayne Rollison and Mike Smith. Those are awesome.
they were solid, but Tim Thomas was like unbeatable. He was a god in that series.
Yeah,
He let in
yeah,
8 goals in 7 games. Like there, you couldn't buy a goal past him at some points, right? Like he no, yeah. That is one of the best versions of a goalie you'll ever see.
yeah,
Period. Um,
yeah. Unfortunately,
yeah. Okay, next question on the Spotify. Who would be on the draft wish list in the position of the bottom 10 teams?
uh,
Um,
Aiden, this is a you question.
it
This
kind
is
of
a hundred
is.
percent an Aiden framed question. Did one
Well,
of your friends put this one in?
oh, dude, most of these come from people we know. Like this
Okay,
is
gotcha.
um okay. What I'll do for this is I'll give you the teams that wouldn't have Celebrini's first no matter what on everybody's list.
Especially the Sharks.
Yes. Okay. But that's yeah. Um Here are the teams that I think would take Ivan Demidov second overall. This is how I'll do this. So everybody takes Celebrini one. I think Chicago Columbus, Montreal, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Calgary, and the Islanders would all take Demidov second if they had the opportunity.
Okay, well, wait. I think you're doing this a different way than they asked. I think you are at least.
I have 12 teams in front of me that I've jotted down notes for.
Okay, yeah. So like if the current bottom 10 position.
Okay, here, why don't you spit out a team and I'll
Yeah.
drop what I think their top five would be if they were picking it.
Spit out a team and give us I'll spit out a team and you give us a mock draft, basically. I feel like
Okay,
that's draft wish
sure,
list.
sure. Yeah,
Like
go.
like the player. Yeah, so the Sharks.
Okay, one, Celebrini. I think number two for them is Lev Shunov. They need a right shot defenseman. They've got some left shot
Right.
defensemen. Number three is Ivan Demidov. He can play center. He can play the wing. I think him and William Eklund make a good pair. And then two more defensemen because I do think they need to bolster their defense. I think Sam Dickinson and Anton Silayev are their next two.
Salayev would be fun.
6'7", man. That's a
Yeah.
big guy.
Chicago.
Um, I think Chicago's prospects are amazing. I think their defense is sneaky good as well. I think it's Celebrini and Demidov 1-2. I think if they have the opportunity to take Lev Shunov, they will because they need the right shot defenseman. So Lev Shunov's my three. Like they've got Korchinski, they've got Del Mastro, they've got Alex Vlasic on that left side. Um, and then 4-5, I'll go Caden Lindstrom and Cole Iserman. I don't know
Okay.
if I have Iserman. I have him at 5, I'm sure, at some lists. But I just think Iserman on the second line with Oliver Moore and Bedard on the first line is just that would be crazy. Caden Lindstrom is a special player. I said this early in the season. The skating and the edge work of somebody that big is kind of unheard of. Like it's very fun to watch. But yeah, Celebrini, Demidov, Levshunov, Lindstrom, Iserman would be my Chicago five.
And then let's go Anaheim.
Much like Chicago, I think they traded Drysdale for Gauthier. So I think replacing that right shot defenseman is going to be a priority. So I'll say Celebrini, Levshunov, but they've got left shot defensemen in the prospect pool. Pavel Mintyukov is a rookie this year. They've got Olin Zellweger. So I don't think they'll lean Dickinson or Silayev with the last few picks. I think it'll be Demidov, Lindstrom, Catton, if not Celebrini, Lev Shunov, especially with the fact that I don't think Trevor Zegras is a centerman long term. I think Cutter Gauthier could even not be a centerman long term. If you have Mason McTavish and Caden Lindstrom, you can play Gauthier and Zegras on the wings, and I think they're better hockey players on the wings.
Very fair, very fair. Columbus. I feel like this one might come out a bit different.
Yeah, I think Celebrini Demidov is 1-2. They've got their centers now, I think. Adam Fantilli is the 1C. You don't need to prioritize the center. Demidov can play center, he can play wing. I would probably say Cole Iserman at 3, man, because
Swing for the fences.
Adam Fantilli to Cole Iserman sounds like a sweet, sweet setup play. um, and then Lindstrom and Catton would be my other two. They're just excellent players, right? Like
How about Arizona?
again, Celebrini Demidov would be my number 1-2. Celebrini is number one on everybody's. I think Ivan Demidov's ability to play the wing or center is really alluring to them because you know that you probably in all likelihood are going to have a top six centerman long term in Logan Cooley, but you don't know what these other prospects are going to look like. Dylan Gunther could be a whole lot of different things. So I think getting a Demidov with the ability to play the wing or play center would be nice. Um, I could see them taking a right shot defenseman as well, to the point where I would actually say Artem Levshunov and Zane Parekh are their next two. Parekh's a
Mm,
right shot, very good offensive defenseman with Saginaw this year. He'll
he's ranked
probably be
around
a
10, right?
yeah, he'll be a top 10 pick, but I think Levshunov and Parekh end up in there. And then again, at number 5, why not Caden Lindstrom?
All right. Well, I mean there's five more teams to go. Pick one. Pick one that you think might be kind of different and less predictable.
I'll go Montreal and Seattle then, looking at this list. Montreal, it's kind of sounds like a tale as old as time. I think they are going to get the second of their top two centers this year if it kills them. I like Kirby Doc. I don't think you can rely on Kirby Doc and say like he's going to for sure be your long-term second line center. Uh, if he does work out that way, that's great. If you pick a center and then Kirby Doc does work out, well, Kirby Doc can play the wing.
Yep.
So I think Celebrini, Demidov, Lindstrom, Catton, and then I'm saying Samuel Hellenius is their five. Their defense is stocked. They don't need defensemen. I don't think they need wingers. So I think it's center or bust for Montreal this year. Um, Seattle is interesting. I think after Celebrini, it's got to be a defenseman. Like if they don't get first overall, the next four players I have on this list: Lev Shunov, Dickinson, Salayev, Perek. Like
Okay.
I don't see Seattle picking a forward unless they happen to get like 12th overall and there happens to be no defenseman left.
Makes sense. Moving on to questions from our Instagram. Just one question there. They want our prediction for Team Canada's goalie trio in 2026. I'll take it away here. I've got probably a combination of these three goalies with I have no idea which one's starting. I'm assuming we have Jordan Binnington, Devin Levi, and this third one just like I really wish it was a year ago so I could just safely say Kemper, but he's not even the starter in Washington right now. Um, this is hard. Um, can I go with I'm gonna cheat here and I'm going to go goaltender yet to prove himself.
Sure.
Yeah, someone who is not currently at the forefront and on our radar because I
Okay,
don't really like any of the other options.
you said Devin Levi, who fits this category already, but if you want to put a second yet to prove themselves goalie in this list, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I think Levi already will be on radars.
Yeah, well, I think I've got him on my list.
Yeah. Who do you got? What's your list?
Did you give me a three? You didn't even say your three. Who's your three?
No.
Oh, what? Okay. Um, I like Aidan Hill, man.
Yeah.
I think this season he proved it wasn't a fluke. I think he's the number one. And then I think Devin Levi and Jordan Binnington duke it out for number two. Tristan Jarry's my dark horse to get in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's one of the ones I just chose not to use.
yeah. And then to me, Logan Thompson and Stuart Skinner are the two that could very well find themselves on the team. But
Oh
I,
man, if Stuart Skinner is our Olympic goalie,
he will not be the starter. If he's on the team, it's number three, right?
like
He's not going
imagine
to
if
be.
two other guys they go and Skinner's the third goalie and the two other guys have rough games. And then we start riding Stuart Skinner because of an injury or a bad performance. I would be so worried. I
Yeah,
don't know. Like
yeah,
he's a great goalie at times. At times he's very good.
it's the inconsistency.
Yeah, I just never know what I'm gonna get with him.
Yeah. Okay, who's your three as to finish it off? Or are you just not going to give one?
Third, I'll go along with your Aiden Hill thing. It makes the most sense.
Okay. Um, what cities, states, provinces could benefit from a second NHL franchise? Quebec is the number one, obviously. The Quebec Nordiques
For
returning.
you, for you,
Yeah.
it's number one. I don't
I'll
even have it on my list. I don't have any hope or thoughts on it. They're never gonna get a team. Sorry.
believe, James. Believe in something.
No, no, it won't happen. Like you will not see a team in Quebec. Just won't work. Um, I will they benefit the most? I mean, the NHL will benefit from everyone that I have in mind. I think Houston or Kansas City done.
Well, Houston would be a second in Texas. Kansas City would be the first in Utah. So I guess Texas as a state gets a second on your list then.
Yeah, and then like you get the in-state rivalry with the Dallas Stars,
Yeah.
and they're obviously going to be gross right away. whether it's a team that moves there, i.e. Arizona, or a team that they expansion draft. And there's a lot that would go unprotected around the NHL right now. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
There are many teams with a surplus beyond what they would be able to protect, and it's not pretty. Like this team would just be dangerous right away. So, I mean, I hope for non-immediate expansion because I like teams to take their lickings. I really I really think teams should suck before they get to be good. I enjoy that. I like the chaos of a team being terrible. It just makes so much happen. Like there's so much player movement and salary movement with that team. They're always like hoping, just hoping that they win that draft lottery, and there's so much drama behind it. And then you get to see like the disappointed interview where they get like third or fourth or fifth overall. And they're like, yeah, yep, well, that's just how the lottery works, and we're gonna pick the best player that's available, and pucks off the glass and grit grind and basically just give the executive version of a boring intermission interview. I like that chaos.
Okay, I concur with your Texas. I think Houston would be cool. I My number three after Texas and Quebec. Maybe I'm cheating a little bit on this question because obviously this is asking for cities, states, provinces. I'm going region. The American Pacific Northwest. I would like a team in Portland. I think
Okay.
that would be cool. There's an NBA team there already. You've got a fan base. You've got an arena. Um, I think that would be cool to have like a Seattle, Portland, Vancouver little mini circle rivalry thing.
Hmm. So you want another garbage team for Vancouver to beat up on, is what you're saying?
It depends if it's expansion, if it's a team moving there, we'll see how bad they are. But I like Portland. I think Oregon deserves a hockey team.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, the Winter Hawks pack they're building. Like there's
Yeah,
hockey
well,
interest.
the WHL teams do pretty well.
Okay, one more question to go, Aiden. And where did this come from?
Somebody texted this to me.
Okay. All right. This is direct to the source. You want your question answered, you go straight to Aiden, the big man on campus. Well, Aiden, reach out this personal question that you got.
Okay, it's a two-parter. What are a few things that go on behind the scenes of a team that fans wouldn't understand that's crucial for the team to function? And then the second part is what are some details about like hockey players specifically that people might not know? Do you have anything for the first part? Because I've got a good one for the second part, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing that's actually pretty interesting is when players are acquired or called up or traded, there are people within the organization that are responsible for like they set up your travel, they make sure you're on the quickest or best plane for you and or your family to get where you need to go, oftentimes to play a game very quickly or get your family set up somehow. And I think that that's a pretty interesting thing that not a lot of people would think of. I mean, these are pro athletes who make decent money, but like the chaos of having to uproot your family and fly across the country to get set up somewhere has in tandem people from two organizations helping you get set up, and I think that's a pretty interesting thing.
That's a good one. I'll leave that as the answer for the first part. Second part, what are some details about hockey players that people might not know? Um, I absolutely 100% think NHL players, junior hockey players, any hockey player, you don't forget a teammate. And if you watch, if you go back, you watch end of a playoff series. For instance, here I'll pull one out. Vancouver, Chicago 2011, because you brought it up earlier. Vancouver beats Chicago. The handshake line goes. You see the extra little exchange between Patrick Kane and Ryan Kessler, who were Olympic teammates the previous year, between Roberto Luongo and Jonathan Taves and Duncan Keith, who were Olympic teammates the previous year. When a player's playing against their old team with a bunch of teammates on it, you see the extra exchanges in that handshake line, right? Like you see the exchanges on the ice. You see like there is a certain bond to being a teammate on a hockey team that I love, and I don't know if it's the same in other sports. It's quite special, and uh, you know, that never goes away, no matter how where you go or how long it's been. Like you'll see former teammates interact with each other on the ice and off the ice and whatever. It's you know, you guys have shared that experience. And I think that's really cool that you're kind of bonded for life.
I like that one. I don't think I can top that, honestly. I think if I'm gonna add anything on the tail end, I've seen players on different teams that are just about to play each other or have just played each other, hanging out, having a good time together. And yeah, that brotherhood definitely does stay together. It's when you're a teammate, especially if you win something like a gold medal, that's a pretty significant thing you did together. Like, and those Olympic teams, they don't spend a whole season together, but you can still form some pretty tight bonds. And a lot of these guys played with each other at best on best tournaments with different age groups, juniors, U18s, U17s. Like a lot of these guys encountered each other before. And then with a lot of them, it's their first time meeting each other. It's and actually having a conversation. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, I definitely empathize with you there. Solid answer. But I think it's time to close this pod out with a tradition we have, Aiden. It ain't the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast without a couple great games to play. Last episode, I asked you to put together something quirky for me. What have you got?
I don't know how quirky this is. We kind of, we've been doing this for a few episodes in a row since we had Charlie on, where something if it's just a something gets surrounded about the episode number we're on. So I'll continue that trend. There are one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 players in the National Hockey League this season to wear the jersey number 49, which is the episode number we are on. Of the 7, I want you to try and name 3 of them. That's your test. Name 3 of 7 number 49s this year.
Is Victor Rask still in the NHL?
If he is, he didn't wear 49.
Okay, then I have to go Barbashev. Those are the only two that came to mind.
Okay. Are you done after Barbashev? Because Barbashev's right, but there's 6 more.
Wait. Is Scott Lawton 49?
No, definitely not.
Damn. Okay. All right. Then no, I don't have one.
Okay. This is bad because Samuel Girard of the Colorado
Oh
Avalanche is one of them.
no.
That's
Oh. Oh. How
that
did that not
sucks.
just jump to mind right away?
Yeah, that sucks.
Who am I? Am I a fake fan?
Um, Rook
Wow.
Chartier, Rhett Gardner, Raphael Harvey Pinard, Max Jones, and Scott Sabrin were the other ones. I thought there'd be 2 easy ones, should have been with Girard and Barbashev, and then I wanted you to try and have to really think for the third, but
I didn't know Harvey Pinard was 49. I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Is that all you got? I
yeah,
failed.
yeah,
I one 0 for 1. I completely failed.
yeah.
Nice.
Story of the
Okay.
day.
Well, it's good to go out on an L. Feels like a really good start to my weekend. Well, unless you've got anything else, I think we can bookend it there. Yeah, I mean, just want to thank you all for listening. It was a fun episode 49, not the Sam Girard episode because I couldn't recall an important player on my favorite team, so it can't be that episode. Unfortunately, it is the Victor Rask episode. So I think that's all we got. So without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.